This week's Football Hipsters podcast is dedicated to the memory of former Premier League and Czech Republic goalkeeper Pavel Srnicek, who sadly passed away aged 47. Making appearances in his career for West Ham, Newcastle, Portsmouth and Sheffield Wednesday, it's a sad loss to football, and we send our condolences to his friends and family. Enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to the Football Hipsters podcast, episode 11. My, how time flies. Season's greetings to you all. This is our first pod back since the Christmas festivities, so I hope all our listeners had a lovely time. But we've got plenty of football to talk about. It will be a bit Premier League heavy this week, but fear not, we have come up with a very novel concept to give you a European fix at the same time. It's about time I introduce myself. I am Kris, I am your host, and I'm joined this evening by three of our regular hipsters. Introducing first, I have John. Good evening, John.
Evening, Kris.
I also have Tom. Good evening, Tom.
Evening.
And I have Drew. Good evening, Drew.
Good evening, gentlemen.
So we have plenty to get our teeth into this week. We're going to start with a slightly different version of this week's Mighty 90. It's going to be a little bit of a tweaked version where our hipsters will give their appraisals on their team thus far. So to give you a little bit of a rundown of what they, how they're feeling about the season so far and what their expectations are for next season. So without further ado, then let's kick into the Mighty 90. Right, this week we're going to start with Tom. So Tom, I'm going to get my stopwatch ready. He says as he frantically types one into Google. Right then, so your Mighty 90, Tom, to tell us about the season so far for Red Bull Salzburg begins now.
Okay, so Red Bull Salzburg, yeah, it's been an entertaining season so far. We didn't have the best of starts after coming back off winning the league and cup last season. We went out of Europe straight away, which wasn't great, and then in the league, we only had 2 wins in the first 6 matches, which isn't good at all. Luckily, we got back into form, moving on, getting 6 wins out of 7. And then there was another really sort of down patch where we only won 1 match in 6, and then towards the end of the season, with our last match recently, we beat Rapid Vienna 2-0, which was a massive win, which means we now sit top of the league, which leaves us until February, rather annoyingly for myself. It's been a bit weird not having games to watch, but notable results: 2-1 home loss to Rapid Vienna wasn't great. 2-2 home draw to Austria Vienna. A 2-1 away win at Rapid Vienna. A 1-1 away draw at Austria Wien, and a 2-0 home win, as I've just mentioned, against Rapid Vienna. As you can see, the real top team's doing quite well. And in terms of news, Oscar Garcia, you may have heard of him from Brighton and Watford, has joined to be our new manager. He played for Barca during the 93 till 99, and at his time at Brighton, he played 53 games, 21 wins, 16 draws, and 16 losses with 39% win percentage. So it'll be interesting to see how he does.
I'll win 2 seconds to spare. There we go. That's your time. Thank you very much, Tom. Okay, so as you rightly said, you're going to have a bit of a break for Red Bull Salzburg. So
yes.
You're taking over with Red Bull Leipzig, aren't you, for a little while?
I was, and then I found out they also don't come back until February.
Oh, good. So you're just going to have a quiet
I'll probably
time.
have a look at Espanyol a bit more.
No problem. I'm sure we'll find a way around that. We didn't think about that when we planned these sections, did we? Right then, let's move it on to John then and go German. Let's see what his thoughts are on Mönchengladbach. John, your time begins now.
Right, it wasn't the greatest start to the season. In fact, it was probably one of the worst starts we've ever had, losing 5 straight games. Unfortunately, that meant Lucien Favre decided to walk away from the club. The club tried to keep him, but he decided that it was the best thing and the team wasn't going to go anywhere with him. And that was a brave decision after the season we'd had previously, where got ourselves back into Europe, into the top tier of Europe, that is. But then Andrew Schubert came in, and we went on an immediate 6-game winning streak. And we haven't really looked back since. It's such a strange season, because considering the start we had, where we were so poor, and then we can look to games like beating Bayern Munich 3-1. The season didn't end as well as I'd liked. Unfortunately, the streak had to end at some point, and we got absolutely drubbed by Leverkusen 5-0, and sadly went out of the Champions League as well, which I think was expected, but there was a hope of getting a Europa League spot that never came about. But some good things to look forward to for next season. We're still scoring a lot of goals. We are conceding, but only Dortmund and Bayern Munich have scored more goals than us this year so far. So it's looking promising for next season. After the start we had, being in 4th position now is really good, and the aim of the team really was just to try and get back into Europe for next season. So it's looking very promising. Hopefully we have a few more back from injury to help out the defence, but I'm excited for the second half of the season, definitely.
Superb. Thank you very much. That's perfectly timed, and plenty to look forward to in the second half of the Bundesliga season. I think it's definitely fair to say on that one. Right then, Drew, your time is ready to rock and roll, so let's hear from you with regards to Feyenoord, and away you go.
Right. Overall, I'm pretty pleased. We didn't end the first half of the season on a bright note. We lost to NEC Nijmegen away 3-1. But like I said, we're sitting in third at the moment. We're 2 points off PSV, who are in second. 5 points back at Ajax. And generally, it's kind of where I'd expect us to finish out the campaign at the end of the season. Both those two teams just have more goals in their side than we do. So it's going to be a little bit difficult for us to keep pace. But overall, I'm pleased. Dirk Kuyt came back this summer. He has 13 league goals halfway through the season. So he's actually second in the league in goals. And for a player who has declined a little bit since his first stint with the club and when his time at Liverpool, he's doing well despite his age. He's no longer playing for the national team, so that might help a little bit. His partnership with El Elia and Michel Kramer is one of the reasons why we're doing so well on the whole. But Simon Gustafsson, I think, he's emerged as the key piece in the midfield, and I expect big things from him moving forward in the second half of the season and maybe next season if we get to keep him. There's been a couple disappointing results here and there. That we lost our first outing against PSV, so that kind of put us on a kind of a stumble in the first beginning parts of the season. But other than that, things are looking good. PSV are through to the knockout stage in CL, so we might be able to slip them for second place. But I'm positive that we're going to do well on the whole.
Good stuff. Thank you very much. Super. Well, I think it's fair to say that any team that has got Ajax in the same league, I think, like you say, it's going to be a 2-horse race for that. For that title. But you just never know, do you? And Feyenoord have been fairly impressive most of the times I've watched in the season. So that probably means that now I've jinxed them, and that will be the end of that run. Right. Final team then is myself, and to see what I think of Lorient, I should put my stopwatch on, and away we go. So Lorient this season, to be fair, it's been fairly good indeed. Sitting 8th in Liga on 26 points. So winning 6 games, drawing 8 and losing 5. So it's probably a few more in the win column would be nice, but drawing 8 is no mean feat in Liga. It's been an overall impressive season under Sylvain Ripoll, who's the new coach who came in. Christian Gourcuff moving on in the summer, and a lot was sort of expected of how Ripoll would do and whether it would go right or horribly wrong. But so far, so good. Standout victory this season has probably been the win away at Monaco by 3-2. And Dong, Shono and Makanju with the goals there, and it was a real sort of surprise result. And mentioning Makanju, he's probably been one of Liga's most impressive signings this summer. He replaced Jordan Ayew, who went to Aston Villa, and he's managed to get 11 goals in 19 appearances this season, so he's certainly been a standout player. As well as that, Wesley Latoa and the aforementioned Didier Ndong, who've really, Latoa's been there for a number of years, but he's really taken his game to the next level this season. And Ndong is a complete out of nowhere signing and has really looked the part. I would say that Lorient's they're probably in the right place, around about 8th in the table. Don't think we can expect too much, but with Ligue 1 being completely crazy this year, I wouldn't put it past it to finish in one of the UEFA or Europa League spots, I should say. But as such, just avoiding relegation, finishing mid-table is success for such a small club. So we're looking forward to the second half of the season. So that rounds up our mighty 90s. So we wanted to change it up a little bit this week and just give people a feel for what had been going on. Let's now move on to our next segment, and it's go stat orientated as we take a dip into this week's world of football. Right then, this week's World of Football, as I preview or debuted, I should say, last week, the stats are out in force, and I've updated and I've been given some pretty new spreadsheets. And thank you to Kelly for providing me with a new spreadsheet to input the information into. So what I'm going to do this week is, rather than the goals of the week, I'm going to give you some stats for the season across the 5 leagues. So I've picked out a couple here for the year to date. So this is from the start of the season up to and including the 27th. So it doesn't reflect the most recent run of Premier League games. But you'll be interested to know that the total goals is an interesting one. The Premier League and Liga are the highest in Europe, with 449 since the start of the season. The lowest, I'm sorry, Tom, is La Liga. That's 407. So it's not a huge difference, to be fair. But I was surprised to see the Bundesliga slightly behind the Premier League on that one. The average goals per game ratio, though, Bundesliga wins out on that one. 2.82 average goals per game. So certainly a high ratio there. And Liga comes top when it comes to clean sheets, 80 this season in Liga alone, and the closest to that with 77 is Serie A, good old Italian defending, John? And as far as the wins column, very interesting, this one. Home wins, Serie A has the highest on 82, just 63 in the Premier League is the lowest. Or if you look at the away wins column, the highest amount is the Premier League on 59, with the lowest coming of 45 in La Liga. So that's got some quite interesting stats there as well. And if we're looking at the discipline side of things, red cards, that's always an interesting one to look at. Well, Liga comes out top on that one as well. 66 red cards this season so far. The lowest, again, somewhat surprisingly, is the Premier League on just 43, and the average red cards per game, the Serie A actually leads the table, 0.36 red cards per game on average in Serie A. So there's some interesting stats for you to chew over. And as I say, I'll be updating. I've got lots of little bits and bobs that I can update each week. So we'll be keeping you across those figures, and we'll go back to our weekly roundup when we return next week. So keep across those stats. Very, very interesting stuff. Right, now what we're going to do this week, given the fact that it is the festive period and we haven't had a lot of games to talk about, and indeed pretty much all of our leagues are in hibernation at the moment, we're going to cover our domestic leagues with a few quick fire questions I want to get our panellists' views on, followed by a little bit of a Premier League roundtable where we'll just sort of discuss the ins and outs of the league, of the country that we reside in for most of us. Of course, Drew overseas, but Drew, you follow Premier League as much as we all do. So that's what we're going to do this week. We're going to start with Tom, and we're going to take a trip to La Liga. Right then, Tom. So what I've done is, as you'll be aware, all your panelists, I've given you some interesting questions, or sort of interesting bullet points, as it were. So I'm going to ask you to answer me with your relevant choices, and just give us put a bit of flesh on the bones as to why you've chosen those teams. So in La Liga this season, who would you say has been the team of the season so far, and why?
Because we're hipsters and we try and avoid all the big guys, it's obviously say Barcelona and whatnot, but I am going for Celta Vigo. They're currently 4th in the league, which is really an amazing feat for them. Won 9 matches, drawn 4, lost 3, which included a massive 4-1 win against the current league leaders in Barcelona. Certainly their standout player has been Nolito. And their real driving force and style and high intensity playing is really what's winning the matches and outrunning other teams that play. So they're my choice, and I think they're well deserved to be in that position.
And do you think that they will sustain this push in the sort of the second half of the season? That's sort of the $1 million question. But
yeah, at the start of the season when you asked, and I said Villarreal would be the team that really pushed, and they're only 2 points behind 1 point behind, sorry, in 5th. But I really do think Celta could, but it completely comes down to what happens in January. If they lose Nolito, then I really don't know what would happen.
Yeah, he's being courted by Barcelona, isn't he? He said he wanted
Indeed.
to play. Yeah, we shall see. We'll keep across that one. Okay, biggest disappointment team-wise this season so far, and why?
Yeah, I've gone for Barcelona. No, I've gone for them. I've gone for Valencia. They're 9th, 5 wins, 7 draws, 4 losses. really haven't, for what they've spent in the summer, haven't performed at all well. They're awful start, drawing games, losing games they should be drawing, and drawing games they should be winning. They brought in so many players in terms of youth. They brought in the likes of Zakaria Bakali and Santi Mina, who I really like and has actually done quite well for them this season. And then eventually the manager lost the job and Gary Neville's come in and still hasn't really managed to pick up any decent form. And the only win he's got is in the Copa del Rey against Baccaraldo, who, as you can probably tell, aren't in the top division. Other than that, he's had 2 draws and 1 loss that came in the Champions League against, as you all know, a very struggling Lyon. So if that's anything to go by, certainly Valencia are not the team they were
previously. Yeah. Do you think they might make a run at the Europa League? Do you think that's probably where they're going to put all their eggs into that basket?
I reckon they have the squad to. They have the huge squad and a lot of rotation capabilities and a lot of youth in it. So there's no reason why they can't do it. But I would be mindful that they really need to get into that 4th spot. And it's this 4th spot this year is so unpredictable. There's no reason why they can't jump up 5 places and get into that spot. So it'll be interesting to see how much of a go they do give the Europa League.
Yeah, we shall. Obviously, you'll keep us across that, that when it happens. Okay, but moving on then. Best signing so far this season across the league. Who have you gone for?
It's a really tough question. There's so many people. I looked at people like Ferrer Carrasco of Atletico, but I've actually gone for Conor Plianka of Sevilla. Signed for his buyout clause from I believe it's Dnipro. I always get him mixed up with Yarmolenko of Dynamo Kiev, but I think it was it Dnipro or Kiev? He did come in.
It was Dnipro, yeah.
Yes, it was, and it was a €40 million buyout clause, which is huge for Sevilla. So he's come in. He's 21 games, 5 goals, 7 assists. Doesn't sound amazing, but this Sevilla team this season haven't been quite like Valencia in many ways. Not really the team they were last season in the double Europa League winning team. But he's definitely been the spark. He's made Team of the Week for us, and there's good reasons why. The game that he came on, and he just absolutely smashed it. And when he does come on, he really does change the game. But often he does start, and the goals he scored have been great, and the games he's played and got the assists. He's really that dynamic force in the side, and he's a much needed creative force in the Sevilla side that they've been lacking in a couple of seasons, especially after they lost Bacca to AC Milan. They needed something anywhere, whether it was up front or from the midfield, to come in and do that job.
Yeah, interesting. I do like Ferrer Carrasco, I must admit. I have to say, I knew you'd pick either Valencia or Sevilla, so that with the disappointment so far.
Yes.
Good shout on that one. This is another good question. Most underrated player so far this season in Spain?
I've gone for Lucas Perez simply because Deportivo are quite slyly sneaking up the league, sitting in 6th. Perez himself is in 18 appearances, got 14 goals. And 3 assists. I will speak more about him later because he does come up in something else we're going to talk about. But he's been really what's dragged Deportivo up the league. They're not a team that thought that were going to be doing this well, but he's flirted with Ukrainian football in the past, and he was at Rayo Vallecano before that. And he's now come into this Deportivo side, and he's grabbed the league by the horns, and he's getting a lot of mentions now in the media, which he wasn't doing at the start. But because his goals have been so consistent for Depor, it's meant he's got a lot more media coverage, and there are murmurings of a move possibly happening, whether that be January or the summer.
Yeah, another one.
He's only 27, so.
Yeah, so I was going to say, it's not particularly old, is it? Certainly within the time span of a move. So, okay, manager of the season so far and why? I suppose this might be obvious, but I'm sure you'll pick somebody different.
Yeah, you probably expect me to say Luis Enrique, but I'm not. I was torn between 2, but because I was torn between Berizzo of Celta, but because I use Celta in the team of the season, I've gone for Mandilibar of Eibar. Eibar, another team who've really done well this season, and he's really managed to get their home performances as such a fortress. Valencia went there recently under the new Gary Neville, only coming away with a 1-1 draw, and they're just really quite grinding out results and still playing some nice football as well. And they haven't got a lot of budget. You talk about teams in your league, Kris, like Ajaccio with the budget they have. And Ibar haven't got one either. They spent less than £1 million and brought in a significant number of players, most of them on loan, including the striker Enrique they got up front, who's the German who's really smashing it this season. It's sort of worrying because the trend was the same last season. And in my interview with Phil Kitchenmilidis, he highlighted that the same thing happened to them last season. Started the season well, and then the second half of the season really went downhill and ended up should have been relegated, but the Elche kerfuffle meant they didn't. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the second half.
Yeah, glad you've gone for a completely different choice. I thought you would. Okay, a youngster to highlight for the second half of the season. This can be anyone who's either very, very young or just somebody who's kind of, just early 20s.
This is the one where I have gone for the obvious one. It's Marco Asensio.
Sure.
19-year-old, plays for Espanyol. Espanyol have not been doing too well this season. Currently 12th. But they thought this season would be the season where they're pushing for those Europa League places, but it's not happened. They've lost a lot of players in the summer. Garcia, one of the notable ones. And Asensio's come in from Real Madrid on loan. A lot of clubs were vying for his signature when he was signed from Mallorca the season prior. And he's coming, as I said, 8 assists. You can't ask for much more from your number 10. I can't help but try and compare him to our beloved Mesut Ozil at Arsenal, but the way he sees passes and drives the team forward. But he's definitely tutored for big things in the future, so that's the reason he's my youngster.
Yeah, fair enough. What about a player to watch in 2016? So this can be of any age, any shape and size, just somebody you particularly like the look of.
I've mentioned Celta Vigo, and I've gone for Nolito simply because, one, if he does stay, he's going to be the main reason why Celta Vigo could push to stay in that fourth spot. So I've gone for Nolito simply because he's that player that that you'll have to watch and see how much he influences Celta Vigo's play and their style. And even if he does move, which he will be to Barcelona, from what we're hearing, he really needs to, and wants to be in that Spain squad for the Euros. So game time is going to be a massive thing. So he does move to Barca. It'd be interesting to see if he got in that side. But if he doesn't, it'd be great to see him continue the form that he's had in the first half. And I'd love to see him in that Spain squad for the Euros. I think it'd be great for him and for the Spain squad.
Yeah, I think he'll make it. And Hipster's soft spot of the season. Again, this can be, a certain player, a certain team. I think we've all picked teams in the end, but just somebody that's close to your heart and maybe a reason why they might be.
I've gone for Espanyol. It's been said by you and others that I've started getting a bit of a love relationship going with Espanyol. Simply one, because I love the kit. The blue and white stripes is really nice, and I now own that kit. For Christmas, I got myself an Asensio Espanyol top, so no bias going to this second half of the season whatsoever. But no, they've now brought in Constantin, who is the old Steaua Bucharest player. And it's such a hipster fact as well that he won the treble with Steaua Bucharest and still got sacked, and has now come in to Espanyol to see if he can get them higher up the league. And yeah, I love Asensio. I love the kit. I love a lot of their other players actually, because they have got a nice team, even though they've lost so many in the summer. And I really do wish them the best for the second half.
Yeah, it is a nice kit. I'll give you that. Just finally, then, before we switch gears, any other business or anything else you want to sort of mention with regards to the first half of the season or expectations for the second half?
I guess I can't really go anywhere without mentioning Real Madrid in terms of the first half. It's been such chaotic and awful. It's an awful atmosphere in the Bernabeu. The treatment of Rafa Benitez, I think, is unjust. He's got so much pressure from the fans and from Florentino Perez in terms of his team selection. Basically, the team that he selected for the El Clasico, in which they lost 4-0, wasn't the team he probably would have selected. It was a team that was predicted to be selected in the media and what was assumed to be pressurised on him by the president. And you didn't see Casemiro start, and they're such in need of a defensive midfielder. Because they just think themselves so arrogant and so high up in that they don't need one. They can just play with all the creativeness and all the industrial attacking midfielders that they had, and such Kris and Modric and the like in that midfield, that they get so exposed when they come up against teams like Barcelona. And then you've also had the 10-2 win against Rayo Vallecano, which at first you think, wow, that's amazing. But at the point where they were 11 against 11, they were 2-1 down. And then with 10 men, it was 2-1 down. And with 11, it was 1-1. So, and that's what it really focused on. So, and then they sort of broke the unbreakable rule in Spanish football of not embarrassing a team. So it's really quite toxic around Real Madrid. So it'll be interesting, especially with Mourinho now a free agent, what could occur there.
Yeah, and of course we'll see how their teams get on in the Champions League as well, because all three of the top Spanish sides are in the Champions League. So, as well as Sevilla, Valencia, that's the only two in the Europa League, isn't it? Second half of the season.
Sevilla and Valencia.
Oh, Villarreal is still in that.
Villarreal is still in
Yes.
it. Yep, they
Bilbao.
came second in the group.
Bilbao
Oh,
as
Bilbao,
well.
of course, yeah.
Spanish teams everywhere. They're growing.
Honestly, it's great. I love it.
There you go. There's plenty to keep us interested, and I'm sure you'll be across that as always. So thank you very much, Tom. Right, let's switch gears then. Let's do exactly the same all over again. This time we'll go all things German, and we'll talk Bundesliga. Right then, Drew. So, same questions to you, same format. Who's your team of the season so far in the Bundesliga?
Oh well, like what Tom said, since we're hipsters, that I can't go out and say Bayern Munich or Borussia Dortmund or anything. I'm gonna go with Hertha Berlin. Beyond the reasons that you could necessarily understand, they're sitting third at the moment, second best defensive record in the Bundesliga at the moment as well. They just play such a good, strong team game in their performance. They're very solid at the back. They're getting some goals from some players that people may have forgotten, like Salomon Kalou and Vidal Ibisevic and the like that. So I think they're just, like they had the stories last year of, Augsburg finishing fifth. So it seems like Hertha's playing above expectations. They're sitting third at the moment, like I said, and if they can keep it going, maybe they'll actually have a shout at, getting a European place, which, again, people probably didn't really see them coming from. So that's my choice.
Fair enough. I'm going to ruin this when it comes to my turn. I know it. Who's your most disappointing team so far in the Bundesliga?
It is difficult. There's quite a few candidates for this one, but honestly, I'd probably go with Wolfsburg. They're seventh at the moment, so they're not far off the pace for maybe that last Champions League spot or Europa League place. But honestly, I don't think they really did a fantastic job of replacing Kevin De Bruyne or Ivan Perisic. Both were pretty key figures for the club. I know they brought Julian Draxler in, but he's not a player who is the same type of player as De Bruyne was. So they're still lacking. Not only they're lacking some of that creativity in that number 10 role, but they've been really inconsistent as well, especially as of late. So the talent is there for that squad. They have some very good players across the 11, so I expect more from them in regards to getting a good run of games in and getting the results that they deem necessary. So I expect better from them in the second half of the season and in Rückrunde. So yeah.
Cool. I must admit, I took the time to write down my own answers to all these questions, and I had them as well. So synchronicity. Best signing so far this season. I picked a certain person for Bayern Munich. Who have you gone for?
I did not pick the same person because it can't be hipster if you say Douglas Costa. I won't.
No, true.
Chicharito. £8 million signing. At the moment, he is sitting. He's sitting fourth in league in goals on 11. People completely wrote him off after he had a torrid time at United, as we all know. He didn't really do anything at Real Madrid for a consistent period of time, as to where people would maybe, expect him to come to Leverkusen and have such a ridiculous effect for them at the moment. He's been brilliant in Champions League for them, Europe rather, and he's been great in the league. He's formed a really good partnership with Stephen Kiesling, so that's my choice, because I don't think anyone saw it coming. I think people wrote him off once he left to Germany, and now he's showing why people in Mexico had such high hopes for him. Yeah,
definitely people wrote him off, that's for sure. And he is tearing it up right now, no denying that. How about your most underrated player this season?
John will be happy, Fabian Johnson. He did well for Hoffenheim a few years back, and at Gladbach now. He is one of the reasons why under Andre Schubert, their attack was transformed since Schubert came in. He's been playing the key role out on the flanks. His work rate is fantastic because it used to be a wing back, and he played there for the U.S. national team. He played there for Hoffenheim, but when he going forward, he offers quite a bit. He can deliver a good ball. He's got an eye for goal, but he also tracks back very well. And I think that's something where checking him out on the wing, it gives you that defensive winger as well as he can contribute in the final third. And I think he's one of the reasons why Gladbach have done so well since Schubert came in.
Yeah, I love Fabian Johnson, I must admit, as just a really really transformed player, and there's a brilliant song written about him if you can find it. John knows what I mean. Right, how about your manager of the season so far, and why?
John will be happy again. The aforementioned Andre Schubert. Gladbach were bottom of the table, absolute, just awful state of affairs, as John can testify to. But he came in on September 21st, and then Gladbach were undefeated in the league for 3 months until very, very recently. They went from fighting for a Champions League spot. They had an excellent season last year, a horrible start this year. So sometimes people say that clubs pull the trigger too quickly on changing management. But this was clearly the right choice. They look a different side under him. They still have a little bit of questions at the back sometimes to sort out, but they're much reformed under him, and I expect them to continue to put in good performances in the Rückrunde under him as well. So.
Yeah, reinvented. It's a good word.
Yeah.
How about a youngster to highlight from this season so far?
Give you one guess.
Oh, no, go on. I'm not sure if I get this.
Julian Weigl.
Okay, yeah.
So, it might seem a little biased, but, came in the summer from 1860 München. Even he will tell you that he did not expect to have such a strong, positive effect at Dortmund so early in his career. He came in expecting to, learn the ropes a bit under Thomas Tuchel, get a, odd match here or there, but be a little bit of a depth option. But he's come in and he's been absolutely brilliant for Dortmund. He's been their first choice holding midfielder. With Sven Bender, Sven Bender dealing with some of his injuries he deals with sometimes. He's come in and formed a good midfield partnership with both Ilkay Gundogan and either Gonzalo Castro or Shinji Kagawa, depending on the formation they use. But he's been great. He's been proven to be very level-headed for someone as young as he is. He's very good in possession. He's even got a little bit of creativity in him somewhere, and I expect big things from him, not only for the second half of the season, but I expect him to break into the national team eventually before the next World Cup. So, yeah.
Cool. Thinking about it now, it should have been obvious. I went for Dahoud, but I can definitely see why you went for Weigl. I know we've spoken about it many times. What about a player to watch in 2016?
Dahoud is actually my player to watch for.
Symmetry. It's like we planned that.
A little bit, but we didn't. I think he's shown a lot of promise alongside Granit Xhaka this season, and he's only 19. But I think he's playing a little bit above his years, honestly. And they had Christoph Kramer in that role last season, and John and I spoke about at the beginning of the year that he's going to be very tough to replace. In early goings in the season, he proved that he was tough to replace. But Dahoud came in, he settled very, very well in that role for such a youngster. He's added goals. He does add some creativity, but he can help control the center of the park very, very, very well alongside Xhaka. So, I think he's going to be one of those key pieces for Gladbach if they're going to sustain that sort of push for a Champions League spot. So, yeah, I expect something from this for the coming second half of the season.
Okay. And how about Hipster's soft spot for you?
I'm going to go with Mainz, actually. They're incredibly unheralded, but they've got some really exciting players, and in the final third, Yoshinori Muto, who is now linked with Man United, oddly enough, Yunus Mali, Yairo Samperio, Paulo de Blasis. These are people that, players that people weren't really talking about, before the season and whatnot, but all of them have gelled so well. And between the four of them, I think they've scored 20 goals in all competitions, which is, oddly enough, 20 of their 23 goals scored domestically are from those four players. So not only are they key players, but they're exciting players to watch when they combine well. They got some other good players like Julian Baumgartlinger, who I know Tom will know about. Loris Karius is a good young goalkeeper at the back. So I think they're just fun to watch. They might not end up, charging up for a Europa League spot like I originally thought they may have earlier in the year when we talked about them, but they're very good, side that could finish, 7th or 8th, and that's an excellent season for them if they do. So, yeah.
Cool. I'm going to keep an eye on Darmstadt. I don't know. They've become my sort of almost like Paderborn were last year, except they'll probably stay up. Unlike my Steam Chargers, who are well, let's not go there. And any other business in the Bundesliga? I know personally, I'm sort of keen to see how Bayern Munich will. Well, I don't know if adjust is the right word, but with Pep sort of announcing that he is going to go, that's the thing I'm going to keep an eye on. But anything that you would pick out to watch out for in 2016?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see if Aubameyang can continue his goal scoring form. He slipped a little bit in recent weeks. So it'll just be interesting to see because Lewandowski's cooled off as well. So I wonder if that sort of goal scoring rivalry for the season will heat back up again. Both were so hot in during the first half of the season. So I'm going to keep an eye out on that just because I want to see what happens there.
Yeah, it's a great shout. It's a great shout. And if he does, I mean, his value is just going to skyrocket. So we'll certainly keep an eye on that. Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Drew. That's much appreciated as always. John, let's move things over to your side of things as we talk a little Serie A. Right then, John. Again, same format. Plenty to ask you. Let's start with your team of the season. Are you going to buck the trend? Are you going to go for the obvious, or are you going to pick somebody hipster?
I was going to say Fiorentina. Why? Who did you have?
I might have had a team that's quite close to our hearts, maybe.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I mean, they were in the running, but yeah. No, it's got to be Fiorentina. There's many reasons why. I mean, they're second in the league. They're only 1 point behind Inter Milan, but the biggest reason is the fact that they've kept the form they had last year, or for the last few years, and they're under a new manager, and their wage bill has been slashed by 30%, which I don't think a lot of people knew. And they really are fighting for the title. They've got the fourth best defence in the league, and they've scored more goals than any other team in Serie A this season. They're just really great team to watch. Everything gels. They've got two good strikers that they can rotate in Kalinic and Babacar up front. They've got great midfield. Defence works really well. I think Marcos Alonso is probably one of the best fullbacks in the league. Really showing what he's got in terms of ability there now. And they're just an exciting side to watch. I think they're great.
I think that's a good shout, actually. I must admit, saying that, Serie A is probably one of the hardest ones to pick a hipster team out of.
There is so many teams I could have picked. There was, honestly, when I was trying to nail it down, it was really difficult.
Yeah, I bet. How about biggest disappointment? I struggled with this in Serie A. But,
I didn't.
Didn't you? Go on.
I went straight to Lazio.
Oh, yes. And see, now I think about it, it makes sense. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I mean, again, there was a few that could have been obvious, like Verona, obviously, without a win, and Roma just sort of being Roma. But Lazio this year, last season they did very well and ended up losing in the final of the Cup, and it was a disappointment to the end of the season, but overall it was a good campaign. But so you were expecting some exciting things this year. Some new young players coming in. A few of the others have been there a while, and it's just gone horribly wrong. There's a massive Stefan de Vrij-shaped hole in the defence. They're really struggling from that. Candreva not firing, and neither is Felipe Anderson. The bizarre list of sort of accidents that have happened to players and injuries and just weird things going on at the club. They obviously at the end of the campaign the mid-season break on a good note with the win over Inter, but they really need to turn things around there. It's just been an awful start to the season.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. That win against Inter was almost completely unexpected and almost, dare I say, at the wrong time, because now they've got into the break and they have to refine that form again.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is a little bit. I mean, Samp also should get a bad mention, as it were, for one of the worst teams as well.
Yeah, absolutely. What about the biggest signing so far this season, I say best? I should say best. Is the word I should choose.
This was really hard. The easy one to say would have been Dybala. For obvious reasons, but I'm trying to keep it hipster, but I really struggled. So he's not massively hipster, but Adam Ljajic for our beloved Inter Milan, because the one thing the Milan team was really missing was a creative spark after Kovacic and Hernandez left, and Ljajic hasn't played that many games for Inter, but when he has been in the team, he's been without a doubt probably one of its best players. And if they can get him in the side more and he can play regularly, then they really have got a chance at the title. He's just a great player to watch and just absolutely brilliant compared to the sort of the midfielders that Inter do have in their very box-to-box sort of big physical, no nonsense, but not really, not with the technique or ability that he has.
Cool, no worries. I went with Brozovic, so I wasn't far off the from where the apple fell on that one.
I must admit, I cried when Laic left Fiorentina.
He is a good little player, no denying that. What about most underrated player this season?
I'm going to go with Drew will probably appreciate this one. Martin de Roon, who I think I've said that right. The Dutch midfielder plays for Atalanta. Absolutely doesn't get talked about. Doesn't score goals. Just really, really talented player, and he just makes that midfield tick. And Atalanta are sitting 9th in the league, doing really well this season. I think it's the most points they've ever had at this point in the season since 3 points was introduced for a win. Which just shows you how good a season they're having, and he has been all part of it. And he cost just, what was it? I think it was 1.5 million, and I think that was euros as well. From Heerenveen.
Heerenveen, yeah.
Yep, I think it was. There we go. I did do some research. But yeah, he just you don't see anything of him. Nothing ever really gets mentioned about him. But if you watch Atalanta, just watch him. Everything goes through him. He's so key to that team. Really impressive, and just because he's just not at a trendy club, so he doesn't get talked about.
It's a great shout, really, really good shout. Very hipster as well. Very, our fellow guests will approve, I'm sure. Let's see if you can keep it hipster then. Manager of the season so far, and why?
I've got a three-way tie for this. I really couldn't pick.
Greedy.
Yeah, I know, very greedy. It would have been Eusebio Di Francesco from Sassuolo, but they are on exactly the same points as Empoli, so Marco Giampaolo gets it as well, and I had to give a nod to Roberto Donadoni at Bologna, and it really is a three-way tie just because those managers at the clubs they're at, with the budgets they've got, and the things that they are doing, particularly Donadoni, the way he's turned things around at Bologna, but he gets the nod for it. But Giampaolo continuing the great work that Sarri had done at Empoli before, after they'd lost some really key players like Regani and Valdafiori, and Di Francesco, Sassuolo just keep going, just better every year. I don't know, I really don't know how he does it. So just amazing. So yeah, I had to cheat on that one and have a freeway.
if you pardon the expression.
Yeah, pardon the expression, yeah.
I must admit I did cheat on one of mine as well, so you can have that. I went with Sarri for that one, by the way. But yeah, good shout. What about youngster in Serie A to look at in 2016?
I was going to say Berardi, because it was obvious, but I'm actually going to say one who's hardly played at all, who we talked about the other week, Daniele Regani. Less so much maybe for his playing, because I'm not sure how much he is going to play next season, but it kind of depends on what happens this January. There's a lot of talk of lots of clubs coming in for him, and one of them in particular being Napoli. Now, I don't see Juventus necessarily selling to a rival, but Sarri is a big pull for Regani because he really helped him get his career and get noticed. And whether he moves on within Italy or abroad, he's got a really tough decision to make now, whether he stays at Juventus, where he's going to struggle to get in the team because of the three very established centre-backs that they have, or whether he goes abroad to find another club to play for. So he's the one to watch for a slightly different reason. Fair
enough. You can have your own reasons. There's no rules. That's the great thing about this. What about a youngster to highlight? No, sorry, we've just done that. A player to watch.
Player to watch. It's from Napoli, Jorginho. Lots have been talking about Napoli. Obviously, Gonzalo Higuain, easily the best player of the season for Serie A. Way ahead in the race for the Capocannoniere. 16 goals already this season. But Jorginho has been, as with Martin de Roon at Atalanta, he's been the linchpin in midfield. And after Valdafiori had come in, he'd been sort of talked about as he was going to be a man who orchestrates everything, the Pirlo of the provinces, as they called him. But it's been Jorginho who's done it, showing the form and performances he'd done at Verona that got him the move to Napoli. And now talk that he may get a call up for the Brazilian national team. He did opt to play for Italy, but he still hasn't appeared for them yet. He wasn't included in the squad, the last Italian squad, so he can switch back allegiances for Brazil. So it'll be interesting to see what decision he makes. But yeah, just watch Napoli next season. Second half of the season, and Jorginho in particular, because if he plays well, then Napoli are definitely on for possibly regaining the title. Regaining the title since 2000. Oh God, I can't remember when it was now. Last time they got it, a long time ago.
Long time ago, yeah. Player I like, I must admit. And what about your soft spot of the season? Your hipster soft spot?
Soft spot. It's got to go to Sassuolo. It has to.
Just
the great kit, Berardi there, and the song alone. Just Nero Verdi. It's brilliant. Just the whole team, the stadium, the fans. I really enjoy watching them play, and they just play good football. Just really fun team to watch.
Yeah, here. And any other business? Anything you want to particularly draw our listeners' attention to in the upcoming sort of 6 months or so or the final 6 months of the season, I should say?
It'll just be interesting to see how Juventus keep going with their march up the table, only 3 points off top now. How the other teams above them react, because that is really big pressure, and Juve are the sort of the big dogs of the league, despite the history that sort of Inter and Napoli or Milan, those other clubs have got. And the other thing to watch will be how long Rudy Garcia keeps his job at Roma. Will be the big one. Whether at the moment he's still in a job as of recording, but whether he still is by the end of the season will be a different matter. I don't think come the summer he will be. He'll be gone, I would have thought, but whether he lasts out the season will be the interesting thing to see how that affects Roma, because the players are certainly behind him, but the board aren't.
Yeah, it's a race between Garcia and Fournier at Lyon. So when are they going to get sacked, and will it happen before we record 1 week? Yeah. Superb. Okay, right. Time for me to hand over to you then, as we'll sort of wrap up our leagues, and we'll have a chat about League 1.
Okay, so we'll start with, I've got the list of questions, yes I have. Your team of the season so far, Kris?
Well, as I said, I'm going to disappoint everyone and go completely full non-hipster. I had to say Paris Saint-Germain. There's been a lot of teams that have been really impressive, but truth be told, I just couldn't narrow it down to one. The reason I've kind of gone with PSG is not for the obvious reason that they're top and they're winning the league by a streak, because the money they've got, they should be. But what's particularly impressed me this season is they're actually playing football this year. They've got some really exciting attacking players. The formation is different, the style is different, and they're just a really fun watch. And you certainly couldn't say that last season. Blanca's taken the kind of the reins off them and just said go for gold. The signing of Di Maria has been a masterstroke. He's been a joy to watch. Zlatan has had a slow start, but has now become the Zlatan we know and love. And Cavani is still hilariously average. So it's just been a completely different new look PSG, and I think it's a PSG that might go far in the Champions League.
Just had to get your little dig in about Cavani, didn't you?
Oh, I had to. If he's listening, which I'm sure he isn't, I like him, but he's someone else.
Okay, moving swiftly on. Biggest disappointment so far this season?
This is where I've cheated because I couldn't separate them. You'll be shocked to know it's Marseille or Lyon. I'd say Marseille overall, but Lyon is a car crash all on their own. Marseille, just for the fact that they flatter to deceive, and that if you look at Lyon, you think they're one of Europe's big hitters. They're one of the most established names in all of European football, and they're sitting in 10th. Excuse me, Michel, the manager. I'm not convinced. They've got some very good players, but they don't seem to play as a team. They've also got some very poor players, it has to be said. And you could put the same at Lyon. Obviously, we've highlighted the issues they're having currently and sort of where they are in the league and the problems they've had with Fournier. Losing Fekir and Lacazette to various injuries has not helped. But once again, some of the signings, some of the way they perform, the fact the dressing room's divided, it's just two very big clubs that are having two extremely average seasons, and I don't see either of them having a particularly great second half of the season either.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was Julien Laurent saying that Lyon were the real embarrassment for French football, the way they performed in the Champions
Especially
League.
in the Champions League, absolutely, yeah. 100%.
That's the damning indictment if ever you hear one. So let's go best signing so far this season.
Yeah, this one again, a little bit of a tricky one. I have gone full hipster on this one, you'll be pleased to know, and I've gone with Cairns Andy Delors, who was Wigan fans might not remember him at all, but he was briefly there and didn't really do a lot. But he's just taken Cairn kind of to new heights this season. And I think it's refreshing when you see a team that is high up in the division, who's a particularly unfashionable team, and you always look at, okay, well, how well is the defence doing and who's getting the goals? And the thing that I really like about Delors is that he's kind of hipster in that he's got a very, very trendy haircut and he's got some very trendy tattoos, but he just goes about his work really well and works very hard off the ball. And he's got 6 goals in 19 appearances, which doesn't sound like a massively amazing strike rate, but he's very central to what Caen do. And to be 4th in Liga at this stage of the season for a club that was expected to be kind of in a relegation dogfight is no mean feat at all. And as I say, for a guy he signed from Tours, where he actually only scored twice in Ligue 1 last season, and when he was at Wigan, as I said before, he only made 11 appearances and didn't score either. So it's not like he was a player that you thought, okay, yeah, he'll come in and score goals off the back of a good season. He's been quiet for a while, but he's only 24, and I expect some good things for him, and hopefully he'll carry on the good season he's been having in the second half.
Now, this is one I struggled with because obviously I don't watch as much Ligue 1 as you, but most underrated player in Ligue
1. This I struggled with as well because there is a lot, but I couldn't help but pick an Angers player, and I've gone for Shaken Doy. Who's just their big, no nonsense, muscular central midfielder, box to box, power, pace, poise, just a lot. He's 29 years of age, so he's not exactly a youngster, but he's got 5 goals from 16 appearances from midfield. He's their skipper. He leads by example. And again, look at Angers, a tiny club promoted from Ligue 2, and he's managed to fire them up to as high as second in the table at points of the season. So I couldn't look past him. There were others that were in the frame, but he was the standout choice.
Is that the Shaken Doy that when they played Lyon, was it Lyon, and they said we have to mark him at set pieces, and he scored 2 goals? And then he
scored, scored 2 goals, yeah. That didn't work out too well.
Oh, very good. I think I've got this in the right order. Player to watch for the second half of the season?
We can go in that order if you like, yeah. Okay, I was going to do manager, but we'll...
Oh, okay, we'll do that, and then we'll do the manager.
Sure, okay, we'll do... So, player to watch in 2016. I'll go with Casimir Ninga. On Ninga watch, he's fast becoming one of my favourite players to watch. He was a player who was signed. Basically, nobody knew anything about him. Even his own coach said he's a massive gamble, and if we get anything out of him, it'll be great. He's got more than something out of him. He started to lead the line for Montpellier. Although Montpellier are now a club that have been thrust into turmoil because their coach has walked out. Roland Courbis, after we praised him in the last pod for steering them out of trouble, has walked. So I'm not sure what that means for Ninga, but at 22 years of age, 6 goals and 10 appearances. Representing Chad, certainly not a nation that many will be familiar with. I think he's going to be a real starlet to watch in the second half of the season, and pace, power, directness. I think he'll come out probably with a move at the end of the season. I would imagine if he carries on this trajectory.
I think that's terribly insulting to our listeners. I'm sure they're all watching football from Chad every
absolutely,
single week.
Yes,
always tuning into Match of the Day Chad or
Match of the Chad,
yeah. So now should we do the manager of the season?
I've gone with Angers again. It's Stéphane Moulin. Just wow. I mean, there's not a lot you can say. There was a few other candidates, but to take a club from almost doing a Leicester, if you will, so taking a club from Ligue 1 to the top 3 spots or the Champions League spots in the French First Division is no mean feat. Yes, everyone will say it's not the best league in the world, but there's some very, very good sides in Ligue 1. And more importantly, there's at least 15 better sides in Liga than Angers at the start of the season, you would think. But yet there they are, 3rd in the league. They're flying high, and if they finish in the top 10, it's an amazing achievement. But to be 3rd in the league it's just fantastic, and Moulin deserves a lot of credit.
Oh, very good. This one's interested me because I want to see who you pick. I know who I've picked from Liga, but your Hipster soft spot.
Soft spot, I've gone for Kazaleka Ajaccio.
Yes, that's exactly who I went for.
How couldn't I? they're just, again, amazing. Drew mentioned earlier on about the budget they're on. It's a tiny, tiny budget. They've got a very small squad. They've got a tiny stadium, which took massive renovation to even get them into sort of Liga-worthy club. And they're just, they play football. They're expansive. The run they've gone on when everyone thought they were doomed is just incredible. I really hope they survive. I do worry that it might catch up with them in the second half of the season, but I really hope it doesn't. And the fact they've got this spirit and they've been able to come back from adversity and to win 6-7 games in a row is just amazing for a team that low down. And they've taken a few scalps and no more noticeable than Leon in their last fixture. So I really hope they stay up and they're just a really fun team to watch.
Yeah, good stuff. Was there any other news or sort of bits you wanted to highlight, or have I missed anything?
You've missed my youngster to highlight.
Oh,
how very dare you! But I'll give you him. It's Vincent Cosiello at Nice. Again, just a real player with so much talent. Nice are another side that have gone under the radar a little bit, flying high in fifth. But Cosiello, he's only 20 years of age, 18 appearances, 2 goals. He's just again a really exciting talent, flair, likes to pick a pass. He's got a good shot from distance. He's kind of running Nice's midfield from an attacking point of view with Hatem Ben Arfa, and every time he comes on, he seems to make an impression on a game. He always seems to make some kind of contribution. So Cosiello's for me. And as far as news, not a lot really. I think as far as Ligue 1 goes, it's an exciting league as regards to who might take the European places. Monaco and sort of flying high in second at the moment seem to be the logical choice, certainly who I would pick. But after that, you've got a real kind of crapshoot as to who might end up in the European places and indeed who goes down. I think it's fair to say that Troyes are doomed, having sort of done an Aston Villa. They've only got 8 points, but other than that, you've got anyone from Toulouse, Guingamp, Reims, Bastia, Montpellier, Bordeaux, Nantes, Gazélec, even Lille. You could probably even put Marseille in that category. It's a lot of clubs separated by a very small point number, so it'll be interesting to see how they get on. And the only other thing to mention, as I said before, is how PSG do in Europe, because that's going to be the real acid test as to whether they can take that club with all that money to the next level.
Oh, no Rihanna news. Sorry, listeners. I
tried.
No,
afraid not. No news. I'll dig out something for next week. I'm sure I can find something.
Okay, that's that all done.
Super. That draws a line under our leagues then. So we're going to sort of transition now into a bit of a Premier League roundtable and just kind of shoot the breeze a little bit with the league that's been ongoing. So let's steer it in that direction. It's Premier League. Right, so I want to start this week. I'm going to start with Drew, and what we're going to do here is just have a little bit of a kind of a roundtable debate with various bits and bobs from the Premier League. Drew, I want to start with you, and I want to start with Leicester. Their sort of title charge, as it appears to be now, I want to know from you: do you think they're going to sustain it, and what do you think's been the key to their success for this season? It's a real shock to see them up there.
It's kind of loaded. Honestly. It's tough to say that they can sustain it. We've all talked before about clubs that finish high in the Premier League or clubs that win the Premier League traditionally have either the first or second best defensive records in the league. Now Leicester have improved their record there in the past weeks, but other clubs, Spurs, Crystal Palace, United, City, and Arsenal all have better defensive records than Leicester, including Watford and Stoke as well. Those teams aren't in for a shout for a top 3 or 4 place, but if the less goals you ship in, the better chance you have of winning. Leicester score a fair amount of goals as well. They're tied for the best offensive record in the league, but but can they see out results? And I think the City match showed that they probably can. A 0-0 against the Holders, a team that score goals. They're doing quite well. So I think while I don't think they'll win the league, I think I wouldn't be shocked if they finished in the top 4 or the top 5. It just for me, I think it depends on they need to sort of stray away from their reliance so much on Vardy and Mahrez. We've seen before in recent weeks as well that if Vardy and Mahrez aren't on song that day, they struggle to find goals. Neither scored in the last 2 matches. They only picked up a point from their last 6. So I think they need to improve in that area. But other than that partnership, that's been fantastic this year. I think not enough people have talked about, but they are starting to talk about Conte's contributions in midfield. I know we've raved about him on the pod because he was a hipster's choice. He's come out of nowhere and he's done quite well. Danny Drinkwater is another one. Those two in midfield have been excellent for them. Albrighton's given them some creativity as well from wider areas, and not enough people talk about him. But they play such an overall good team game. They all know their role. They're disciplined. Claudio Ranieri's come in and done a massive job for them. So I think on the whole, they're almost like I can compare them to kind of like a Hertha Berlin, just with more goals on the side. Like I said, I don't think they'll win the league, but I would be shocked if they finish top 4, top 5 at the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. They drew a 0-0 this evening over Manchester City, so it wasn't the greatest game in the world, but it showed there that they can still sort of come back from a defeat after they lost at Liverpool a couple of days back. Let's go down to the bottom end of things. John, I want to just talk to you about Aston Villa and indeed Sunderland, the two clubs that are kind of being cut adrift at the bottom of the table. Two massive sides, I think it's fair to say, kind of historically, or certainly two very big sides. Do you think this is the season where we potentially lose 2, maybe even 3 of those sort of aforementioned well-established sides? Because I can't see Villa getting out of this as much as I love Remy Gard.
I mean, I think I said the other week that the Villa looked long gone to me. Just the squad is a mess. Remy Gard, I've obviously seen less of him as a manager than you have, but what I have seen, he looks very good, and they're at least playing football. But defensively, they're just all over the place. They're out of position. They're not covering for each other. They're not talking. It honestly looks like a lot of them really don't care and can't be bothered to be there anymore. They brought in what I thought maybe would have been sensible signings in people like Mika Richards, but it looks like the time he had in Italy didn't really do anything for him because he didn't play when he was at Fiorentina. And that year out of football and the injuries he's had, although he's got a lot of experience, it's not showing on the pitch. And they've got so many young players there. I think they're too reliant on the few sort of old heads they have got, and not enough of them are pulling their weight. As for Sunderland, I still think they've got a chance of getting out of it, more than anything because they've got a very experienced manager in charge in Sam Allardyce. I think Sunderland, weirdly, are the team that probably should have been relegated about 2 years ago, because they've sort of been on this run of being right down there near the bottom and clawing a way out of it. But with a manager like Allardyce, he really will give them a chance. And I thought that they've sort of shown since he's been there, some of the performances they've done in games that they've lost have been massive improvements. The Arsenal game where Arsenal beat them 3-1, I actually thought Sunderland played very well in that. The Chelsea game recently where they lost, although they were poor first half, second half they were much more improved. So it's clearly having an effect on the team. But it not necessarily bad for the league to lose teams who are underperforming like that, but it is sad to see teams like Aston Villa, who are they're European Cup winners, and Sunderland are a huge side with massive following, to drop down into the Championship will certainly be a loss in terms of sort of historical teams in the Premier League.
Yeah, I agree. It is a real surprise to see that such struggling sides, especially when you look at some of the sides that are overperforming at the moment. But we shall keep an eye. Tom, I want to talk to you about Manchester United and Chelsea as a kind of a collective question here. The sort of the well-documented figure of Pep Guardiola is looming large, and both clubs have been heavily linked with him after what's gone on at their respective teams this season. How surprised are you at the sort of the failings? I mean, Chelsea, well documented. Man United kind of falling more recently. Do you suspect this is a trend that's going to continue for the second half of the season, or do you think that both will start an upward trajectory?
In terms of Chelsea, I even Goose hit it coming in. I haven't seen anything that really suggests that there's like a response. The response you saw against Sunderland when they didn't have a manager at the helm was convincing in some ways that they're scoring goals, and but they still conceded against a very poor Sunderland side. Then they drew against Watford, and then the drab 0-0 against Manchester United was painful to watch. And you have to say Manchester United were the better team out of the two. So for Chelsea, I honestly can't see their fortunes having any sort of a massive upturn. In terms of Manchester United, if you, it's like I've brought up Soccerway just to help me out with looking at their fixtures, because as not the biggest Man United fan, don't really know all their fixtures in my mind, but it goes back a 0-0 Chelsea, lost 2-0 at Stoke, lost 2-1 at Norwich, lost 2-1 at Bournemouth, lost 3-2 at Wolfsburg, 0-0 at West Ham, 1-1 with Leicester, and 0-0 at PSV. They haven't won in so long, and they just go into games thinking with the mentality of let's not lose this, before they go into it thinking let's win this. It's clear to see on the pitch, it's clear to see with the manager, there's just no drive and no sort of enthusiasm through that side that makes me think this side really want to be in that top four, and I don't think they're going to be in top four. And as people well documented that were Arsenal fans, it would pay me to see Spurs in that top four, but they look so much more well equipped to be in that top four than Man United ever could.
Yeah, it's a real just surprise. I don't think any of us could have foreseen, particularly Chelsea, that the fall from them has just been, well, amazing. To be perfectly honest, amazing. Drew, I want to touch with you on Everton, sort of a team. In fact, I'll put Spurs in with Everton actually as the two. Sorry, you got the short straw, but they're two sides that have overperformed at different periods in the season. Spurs, you probably say, have been more consistent, and Everton are sort of they keep threatening to push up. They keep saying, "Oh yeah, maybe," and then it all goes horribly wrong, and they sit 11th at the moment. Do you foresee either Spurs or indeed Everton? Everton particularly, can you see them making the top four? And with Spurs, do you think that their title ambition? I mean, do you think that's realistic for their supporters when they say that they could potentially break into that title race?
I mean, I don't think you can put Everton in a title race discussion. They're just too inconsistent. You don't rate him very well, but we all think, when someone like Lukaku is leading the league in goals, tied with Vardy, that's something you have to take into account. They have some very talented players. Ross Barkley's there, Gerard Deulofeu, players like that. They have very good players at a team who just lacks consistency. Roberto Martinez there, he's taught them how to attack very well, but the more they've developed their attack, the less stingy their defense has become. So he needs to find that balance before I think they can really be in any discussion about top four or even a top 6 or 7 finish. As for Spurs, we hate to admit it, but I'm sorry, but they're in the title race. They're only 4 points back of Arsenal halfway through the season. They have the best defensive record in the Premier League. While they're scoring, a fair amount of goals, they're actually tied with Arsenal for goals scored. 33 in 19 matches is a very, very good return. Not a lot of people rate Harry Kane, but he's proven yet again that he can score. He's on double digits already this season. Right up there with the likes of Igalo and Lukaku, not far behind Lukaku and Vardy. So, and Pochettino's finally, I think, molded that team into more of a style that he played when he was having successful spells at Southampton. Their back four is excellent. They were smart to bring in Toby Alderweireld to partner Jan Vertonghen, because both of them know each other previously from their time spent at Ajax. They came through the ranks together there. I think that has shown very well for them, and I think that's why their back four has done so well. Kieran Trippier came from Burnley, who he did well last season. Got relegated. Got promoted right back up to the Premier League when they brought him in. So he's made some astute signings to help them in certain areas, and they do look the part. Whether they'll sustain it or not, it's another matter. But only 2 losses out of 19 with that strong back four, scoring some goals. They have to be considered. They might not be necessarily. They might not win a title, but they could also surprise some people and finish top 4. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's certainly foolish to rule them out, as much as it pains me to say. Yeah. John, just before we get all of your views on a team that's close to our hearts, I want to just finish with you on this sort of roundup. And I want to touch on kind of the best of the rest teams. The ones I've highlighted here are Watford, Crystal Palace, and Stoke City. Maybe just have a quick tweak on Liverpool as well with the Klopp effect. But what's your thoughts on particularly Watford and Palace and Stoke? Kind of rebuilt sides in a way, whether it be managerially, player-wise, or recruitment-wise in general. But they're all probably, is it fair to say, overperforming this season?
It's difficult to say because personally, I think the Premier League this year has been fairly poor, and I think that's why some teams are perhaps higher than you would think they'd be. I would put I would put all three. One thing I would give them is that they've all got managers who are massively underrated. I think Mark Hughes is actually has been a very good manager. I think Alan Pardew's been a good manager for a long time, and he's had the issue of being at a club where they sort of get to a plateau, get to a very high peak, and then it starts to go down again. And that generally happens at those sort of smaller clubs where you get a certain amount of money to spend, and then your best players get pinched, and you don't have any ability to replace them. He said that happened to him a lot of time. Whereas at Palace, he's had a pretty stable team and been able to spend not lots of money, but consistently. I'm struggling to remember the Watford manager's name. Kiko Flores?
Yes.
Yeah. He's a guy who I didn't know a lot about, I must admit, but having watched Watford more and more this season, he just got them really well organised, and he's kept faith in the players who helped get the team promoted. In Igalo, there's a striker there who quite possibly, could be on the move to so-called bigger clubs. I know there's a lot of talk of teams in Spain certainly looking at him that Tom would know more about, but they've just got some very good, solid players there, and they play sensible football, and they know their limitations. When they come up against a team that's better, they know how to play and how to defend, and using counter-attack to the best of their ability. And it just shows good management, and I think also good decisions from board members at those clubs, that they get their recruitment right. Things that perhaps aren't happening well at a club, say like Sunderland, where they've gone through strings of different managers and players, and it's all gone horribly wrong. As for Liverpool, it's weird because Jurgen Klopp obviously is famous for a certain style of football, and Liverpool don't have those players, so it's really difficult to judge him. What I would say is perhaps people should go back and reassess how good a manager Brendan Rodgers was, because if you look at the Liverpool team now, it's doing pretty bad, really. It's not doing fantastic. I know there's no Suarez now, which was a big plus for Rodgers, but Brendan Rodgers got the best out of Luis Suarez, and he pushed them as close as any Liverpool team's been for 20 plus years to winning a title. So I think maybe he deserved a bit more credit than he got, and sort of the jokey figure that surrounds him because of some of the stupid kind of David Brent-isms, if you like, that came out of him. That kind of distracted away from some of the good decisions he made. So it's a weird one, Liverpool. I wouldn't want to be hasty on the judgment of Klopp until he gets sort of 2 transfer windows, so until the start of next season, to see what he can do with the team. But as for what he's done so far, if I'm a Liverpool fan, I'd be a little bit disappointed personally.
Yeah, I think that's all fair views indeed, and definitely not biased. Which very briefly, the next section I suspect might be, as regular listeners will know that we're all Arsenal fans. So I just want to get no more, just sort of 30 seconds to a minute from you all on where you see Arsenal's season currently and where you see it finishing. So Tom, let's start with you.
Okay. So I've been pleasantly surprised at how the other teams around us have failed more than how we've done, to be honest. But in terms of Arsenal, I think we're taking the opportunity at the moment as best we can. It's certainly a season, as we've discussed just now, of inconsistencies throughout the league, but of a team that's been hit with such unprecedented injury crisis, losing the likes of Wilshere, Welbeck, Rosicky, Arteta, Coquelin instrumentally, and Alexis, obviously, to go down to what they have and beat the likes of Manchester City with a team that is many players are back up. It's really quite positive. I personally see the team continuing the form into the new year and through into the end of the season. And the most important thing for Arsenal is that second to last game of the season. They need to be within touching distance of the title when they go away to Manchester City at the end of May.
Yeah. Drew, take us on from there.
I mean, I'm surprised, but I'm not. Like everyone knows that, we're all affiliated with ABW in some fashion. I blog there, and the bloggers did a season preview this coming season, and all the bloggers were asked if they thought we'd win the league, and I actually said yes. I'm surprised at how Chelsea have played. United City to a certain extent, even United as well. But I'm not surprised to necessarily see us top of the table. Halfway through the season. Bringing in Petr Cech was a fantastic piece of business. A lot of us will argue, myself included, that it shouldn't have been the only piece of business we did in January, but it was the most key piece of business. Our defensive record has been excellent this season. I'm very not surprised at all how well Mesut Ozil is playing. I'm just very happy that he's transformed his game a little bit to add a little bit extra required for the Premier League. He's meshed very well with the likes of Aaron Ramsey and Olivier Giroud, and Walcott's done well as coming to that striker role as well. So I'm not surprised. My only question is how we're gonna cope come January with signings, and if we can keep the momentum up despite dollar injuries. So that's going to be our biggest question mark, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah, fair points made indeed. And John, just finish us off on Arsenal.
I'm going to moan now. No, I'm really pleased at the top of the table, and it's halfway through the season. It's great. I think the stats say something like if it's 80% of the teams at the top on New Year's go on to win the league or something like that. So, it's all good omens. But the one thing I would say is that going into the season, I think I picked Man City, as the title winners, and then it was between us and Chelsea sort of to challenge them, and I didn't really have anyone else close. But when I look at the league now and how everyone else is performing, it sort of gives me if we don't win the league, we've had the massive failure. And I think that applies to Arsenal and Man City, to be perfectly honest, because they are, I think, squad-wise, and maybe you could throw Chelsea into it, but certainly performing squads at the moment, Arsenal and Man City have the best two. If you just look at names, and they've got the money to go out and reinvest in January. And if it's not Man City and Arsenal pushing for the title at the end of the season, I think both managers and the board really need to look at themselves, because they've failed the fans and failed what should be, to be honest, is looking like a relatively easy season for someone. All you got to really do now is kick on and sort of win a string, get a good string of results, like 10 games running, and I think that you'll end up walking away with the league. We saw Chelsea do it last season. They just started early and then basically were on cruise control for the second half of the season because everyone else was so poor behind them. And I think this season's got the same air about it.
Yeah, I think we'll obviously keep our opinions as neutral as possible heading into the close of the season, and whoever does end up winning the league, we'll of course give them credit, but we'll all hope that it's a team in red. But thank you very much, gentlemen. That's kind of concludes our just whistle stop tour around the Premier League, and just a few bits and bobs there. We should just touch on the results that have happened in recent weeks, obviously since last recording. We'll kind of skip over briefly through these, but Southampton losing to Spurs, Chelsea beating Sunderland, Manchester United losing at home to Norwich, and Everton losing at home to Leicester, Stoke losing at home to Palace, West Brom losing at home to Bournemouth, Newcastle and Villa drawing, and then Watford beating Liverpool 3-0, Swansea drawing West Ham 0-0, and then of course the big game that we covered last pod where Arsenal beat Manchester City, and then we came on to the most recent games. I'll just pick out a couple of highlights really. Liverpool's win over Leicester City was obviously massive. Spurs winning both their games in the recent days of beating Norwich and beating Watford away. Arsenal, we won't linger on this too much, but getting thumped at Southampton, a real surprise there. But coming back to top the table at the end of the year with a 2-0 win against Bournemouth, and as Tom mentioned, the Manchester United and Chelsea game was a bit of a damp squib, as was tonight's Leicester Manchester City game at 0-0. So heading into 2016, Arsenal sit top of the Premier League on 39 points, level with Leicester on the same points. Manchester City 3 points behind there on third. Spurs into fourth now on 35 points, with Palace, Man United, West Ham and Watford making up the top 8. The two Merseyside clubs 10th and 11th respectively. And then you've got Villa, Sunderland in the bottom 2 with Newcastle, Swansea, Bournemouth, Norwich and Chelsea. Bizarrely, it's 14th now, but still very much looking over their shoulders towards the bottom end of the table. There is a full Premier League fixture list on Saturday, which of course we'll cover next week. That kind of draws a line under all things Premier League. There's no rest of the world this week, no rest of the world roundup, because there's nothing really going on. I'm sure there is lots going on, but not that we're going to cover on a high profile level. So we'll skip along. We're going to change things up this week. I'm going to do Team of the Week early, seeing as it is going to be an all Premier League Team of the Week this week. So yeah, we'll move that along. This week's Team of the Week. Right then, so as I said, picked completely Premier League players. That's the only action that's been live and out there. So that's the team that we've picked. So I shall cue up the music if I can find my stopwatch. There it is. So this week's team of the week is as follows. We've decided to go in goal. I couldn't pick anyone else than Petr Cech, really. It's not been a particularly vintage weekend or 2 fixtures in the Premier League for goalkeepers, but Petr Cech finally getting that clean sheets record, so he is our goalkeeper. Fullbacks, gone with Cuca Martina, who scored that amazing goal against Arsenal, to be fair, for Southampton. He gets the right back role, and at left back it's Everton's Brendan Galloway, who's surprisingly broken into Everton's team this season and has really performed very, very well. So he gets the nod at left back. Jose Fonte forms a centre-back partnership with Arsenal's Gabriel. Both players have scored goals in recent times from centre-back, both from corners. Fonte in particular was very good against Arsenal, and Gabriel getting his chance, seizing it with the goal against Bournemouth. A midfield three. And what a midfield three. Ross Barkley is the first name on that list. Despite Everton losing at home to Stoke, he was magnificent in the game recently, and of course Everton losing as well to Leicester, but again Barkley was the standout performer for me, so he makes the midfield. And he's joined by Manchester City's Kevin De Bruyne, who despite having a fairly quiet evening tonight away at Leicester City, has taken his game to another level in recent weeks, and his assisting has been fantastic. He gets into the side. And speaking of assists, well, we couldn't leave out Mesut Ozil, could we? His stats speak for themselves, just an incredible amount of assists and a goal to boot as well, and a delicious goal against Bournemouth. So he slides nicely into the team and has got to be in for a shout at Footballer of the Year this season. As far as the front three, well, it's a Hipsters team of the week first, in that we've picked 2 Stoke players, and you won't be surprised to know that they are Marko Arnautovic and Xherdan Shaqiri, both again taking their games to a new level in recent weeks and really starting to settle. It took Shaqiri in particular a little while to establish himself, and although Arnautovic's sort of off the pitch behaviour isn't always the best, or certainly has a bit of a reputation for being a bit of a troublemaker, he again has got vital goals and has lifted Stoke into high position in the Premier League, and have certainly made them into a sort of a Premier League side to watch now, which you wouldn't have said a few years back. And Romelu Lukaku gets the vote as the centre forward for the team. Sort of personal views aside, he's been absolutely fantastic in recent times, even I can admit that, and his goal scoring exploits have probably been a bit under noticed because Everton have performed quite badly recently, and as I say, losing games they probably shouldn't have done. And as far as the bench, we'll just whip through this one quickly. I've gone with James Tompkins as far as the centre back goes. He's been in pretty good form for West Ham of recent times. Tom Cleverley getting a goal and has returned to the Everton side with a winner at Newcastle. Nathan Redmond, who's a very underrated talent at Norwich City, has certainly been performing well for them. Roberto Firmino had a super game as Liverpool beat Leicester, the table toppers there. And Mikel Antonio finally getting an opportunity to show what he can offer for West Ham. He got to start, or 2 starts back to back indeed, and has performed well. Odion Ighalo also makes the bench. He's been fantastic for Watford. His goal scoring has just been out of this world, and as John mentioned, he may well be in line for a move, who knows. Finally, Harry Kane, who for all his faults in my personal opinion, he's getting goals and you can't knock that. So Harry Kane makes up the final member of the bench on this week's Team of the Week. So that's our chosen sort of selected squad, Team of the Week, whichever you like to call it. As always, tweet us your views. I've already tweeted it from the podcast account, so if you want to see it in sort of a lined up version, feel free. And give us your views. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Would you put other people in, or would you have taken people out? That's what it's all there for, people. Right then, so now we'll move things along to our kind of usual segment. We've still got one. We took a vote on our podcast account this week, who you wanted to see from the vote for this week's Hipster's Choice. I've got a lot of stick on this pod because people think I've rigged it. I promise you I haven't rigged it, but the choice was fairly unanimous. Nabil Fekir was this week's Hipster's Choice vote, with a landslide victory on the polls. So we will give you some information. This week's Hipster's Choice. Right then, so what do we know about Nabil Fekir? Well, he was born on July the 18th, 1993, at age 22. He was born in Lyon, France, the club that he currently plays for. He is French by nationality, although also has Algerian parentage as well. He is 5'8" tall, weighing roughly 159 pounds. And as we mentioned before, his current team is Lyon in Liga, and he wears their number 18 shirt. And his position is an attacking midfield role. He's a client of Nike with regards to his footwear. He wears Mercurial Vapor X soccer boots. And as I said, born in Lyon. He's played with a youth. He's played with several youth clubs, I should say. Easy for me to say. AC Villeurbanne, Valeix en Vallon, and SC Collier. Before moving to Lyon in 2005, aged just 12. However, he was released by the club 2 years later, moved back to Valeix SVN, and then went on to Saint-Priest before re-signing for Lyon in 2011. So he's been around the houses. Between 2011 and 2014, he made 62 appearances for Lyon B, scoring 13 goals. Despite strong showings, he still had difficulty breaking into the first team. But in July 2013, he made his full first team appearance as far as the bench, at least, but he was an unused sub. But he made his full debut on August 28th as a substitute, replacing Yassine Benzia at half-time, and they lost 2-0 to Real Sociedad, thus being eliminated from the Champions League qualifiers. And three days later, he did make his Ligue 1 full debut in a 2-1 away defeat against Evian. He did play the full game, and he scored his first goal for Lyon in 2014, April 27th, against Bastia in a 4-1 home win, and set up the other for Alexandre Lacazette. More about those two in a second. He made a total of 17 appearances in all competitions in his first season. And in 2014-15, he became a more regular part of the first team, making 39 appearances, scoring 15 goals in all competitions. And he made 34 Liga appearances. That was and scoring 13 goals, 9 assists, 7 man-of-the-match performances. Pass success percentage was 83.7%, which is extremely high, and he averaged 2.6 shots per game with an overall rating of 7.5%, and that was the 6th highest in Liga. And in the 22-year-old, he's formed a formidable partnership, as briefly mentioned, with Alexandre Lacazette, totaling 40 goals between them in his first breakout season under Herbert Fournier's side, and finishing second in Liga. And he started the 2015-16 season with a bang, making 4 appearances and scoring 4 goals and 1 assist, including a hat-trick on August 29th against Caen, before unfortunately rupturing 3 ligaments in his right knee during international duty for France. And his injury is expected to rule him out for at least 6 months, so he is scheduled to be back in March 2016, fingers crossed. And as far as a few bits and bobs to add on the end, he's had 5 caps for the French national side. He scored his first and only goal to date for the senior side against Belgium in a 4-3 defeat. And the French manager, Didier Deschamps, said, calling him to the French side in March 2015, he said, "He's a player with great potential. I consider him to bring us something different. He plays in a different role to the others, and he can score and set up others to score." And just as regards to what kind of player he is, well, he's at home in anywhere, really, across the front three. He's a little bit like a winger, can drift in and out, but at times his touch can be a little bit sloppy. He does like to keep hold of the ball, which can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on which side you fall on. And when he plays in a more of a number 10 role in the final third, he isn't actually always as effective as maybe he should be, but on the break, he's very capable of drifting inside and out and playing the ball into space, which is something that others might find hard to do in a similar position. And on the left side, unlike the right, he's capable of beating his defender and driving to the byline for a cross more often than cutting inside to shoot. Because of his differing play on the wings, you can see why he's been given the freedom to drift into different positions across the pitch. And quite often you see him receive a strong pass and control it, as well as pinning his defenders. He's actually got a lot more stronger than you'd think for a guy of his size. And what he has to do well, specifically, or his favoured move is drift inside the fullback and finish on his right foot and finish with his left. We've seen that. We've seen by 12 goals in this calendar year, which is a kind of favoured move. And in sum up, I would say he's probably, or certainly is one of people's most prodigious talents in world football at the moment at just 21 years of age. So that's a kind of bit of information on Nabil Fekir. I'm just going to pick on one of you. Who should I pick on? Tom, I'm going to pick on you. Why not? Just purely out of interest, because he reminds me a lot of a player that you've sort of watched a lot of in Antoine Griezmann, in that his style is very similar, although Griezmann has made the transition to striker. What do you think with regards to the French national team maybe playing the two together, maybe at the Euros, for example?
Yeah, so Fekir, it's hard to compare them as two similar sort of players, but Griezmann's definitely taken on more of a role in Atletico's squad of being a striker. So therefore, the partnership that you described, that Fekir with Lacazette and the type, it could be formulated in the French side. Griezmann would be, for me, the one of the two that played more centrally, and Fekir would be deployed more in a wide position. Obviously, as you mentioned, both of them are capable of playing at all three positions across that front. But if it was me, I'd personally be playing Griezmann in the more central role, because that's what he has been doing for Atletico quite a lot this season. But Fekir, I like the guy. I like his technical ability. I love his passing. I love that he has a natural partnership with Lacazette, which easily could be formulated with another striker. And in terms of the future, I really, out of the two, I think he's got the brighter one out of him and Lacazette. I think he's got a much brighter future going forward, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's linked with some big teams in the future.
Yeah, and we all certainly wish him well in his recovery from injury, and hopefully he comes back the player that he was before he left, because he's a huge talent. And although I'm ever so slightly biased with a player from the league I follow, he's a huge talent. Definitely look out for him on his return to fitness. Okay, brilliant. Right, well that draws a line under the Hipsters' choice this week. Next week we might do another poll. I'm not sure. I might tease you with that. It seemed to work quite well this week, so we might do maybe another one next week. So keep an eye on the Twitter feed for that. Right, just two quick things to do then. We've got no Hipster handshakes this week. Listeners, you disappoint me. Honestly, we've got all these teams not picked and nobody's come forward. So no Hipster handshakes, but we have got a few questions. So let's go over to this week's Onion Bag. Right then, so this week's Onion Bag, we've got, I think it's just 3 questions, and we're going to have a podcast first. Tom's going to throw one in. So, Tom, I'm going to start with you. You've got a question for Drew.
Okay, yeah, Drew, this goes on to when you were talking about Gladbach in your Bundesliga section, and you used the words that Gladbach have gone from the bottom of the league to competing to get into the Champions League. Now, that did make me think, and what does that sort of say about the league as a whole, that a team can go from 5 straight defeats and then go into 6 straight wins and already be back competing for the Champions League? It does seem a bit drastic.
No, I don't think so. I mean, it would seem that way, I mean, at first glance, but you have to understand the Bundesliga is notorious for being very close in the standings, from 6th all the way down to like 14th. So 2 good results and some luck from the teams that are around you, you can jump up 6 spots in the weekend. That's not it's not uncommon. But I think that almost plays to the strengths of the Bundesliga, because it's such a close league when you kind of subtract Bayern Munich, obviously, and then whatever team is very solidly placed in second place. Usually it's Dortmund in recent years, obviously, but past those two, anything can happen, and that's why I think I like that league so much, because it's not as predictable as, say, other leagues like La Liga. Ligue 1 this season with PSG or traditionally with certain sides there. Things are always shuffled in the Bundesliga every year, and I think that's why Gladbach were able to charge up. But they have the talent. They finished very very well last year. So it's not really a shock that they charged up the table. They needed just a shot in the arm, and I know John can attest to that. The quality was always there. They just needed a shake up. And they got it. And then what you're seeing from them now was what you saw from them last season, and so I don't think it's any different.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And definitely one we can expand on for.
I just wanted to add to that actually quickly, because obviously talking about a team that I really obviously enjoy watching, but I think Drew's right in the fact that it's obvious the quality that Gladbach have and that they were just really underperforming. But I think it's a testament to what other leagues don't do. And one of the things I love most about the Bundesliga is the fact that it's an 18-team league. And it's something I know that on ABW someone had asked a question about how can you maybe get a winter break in the Premier League or something like that. An 18-team league, you don't have games that mean nothing. Every game actually means something. You don't get teams that sit in the middle of the table and aren't competing for something, because you're competing either to stay in the league, you're competing to get into Europe, or you're competing to win it. There's no There's no middle point of the table where nothing's going on and there's nothing to play for. And I think that's why it's a much closer and more competitive league than people maybe realise.
Yeah, I think very, very fair points. As I say, it's a discussion topic we could literally go for hours on. There's just so much to cover. But good question, Tom. Good question. We have a couple. I say we've got 3 others. So we'll just whip through these ones. Let's stick with you, John, for a minute. Thomas Shelley asked us a question. He says, "Can the old lady, i.e. Juventus, keep their run of form after the winter break?"
Yeah, I don't see any reason why it would dip off. There's a few players that obviously, if they suffered any injuries, could be an issue. Dybala being the obvious one. Mandzukic as well has been fantastic up front. But they do have good depth. The one thing I would say that Juve definitely need is perhaps another midfielder, because although when Sami Khedira does play, he has been superb for Juventus, he doesn't perform enough because of the injuries that he suffers. So I know there's talk of them they were looking at Fede Guarin at Inter Milan, Lucas Biglia at Lazio, Pjanic from Roma was even mentioned. There's a lot of names floating about for midfielders. Ilkay Gundogan from Dortmund. You can list them off all day long. So I think there will be a player, at least one, coming into Juve, if not more, which will only strengthen them. The interesting big one, actually, of the names, if they do get, would be Cesc Fabregas. Obviously, Premier League fans will know a lot about, because he's really not performing at Chelsea and apparently not having a very nice time. So whether he wants out of there or not, because as much as some people may not like Cesc, especially on this pod, there's no doubting the player's ability, and a midfield three of Marquisio, Cesc Fabregas and Paul Pogba would be absolutely terrifying, if you ask me.
Yeah, massively terrifying. I agree. Drew, I'll give you this one, or will I? Yes,
You will, and you'll like it.
Yeah, I will. I was going to ask us all this question, but we're pushed for time, so I'm just going to ask it to you instead. Jansev Shahina, it's a fantastic question, but we will expand on it maybe at a later date a bit more. But he wants to know, why isn't goals considered to be a big part of a number 10's game now, when previously the types of Cantona and Del Piero needed them? And he puts PS Yunus Mali is a number 10 and scores goals. Winky face.
I kind of answered this a little bit on Twitter earlier, but for me, I think it's not that goals are not necessarily, it's not a requirement or is or isn't. I think it depends on how teams tactically use their number 10. Just because you're given the number 10 shirt or playing the number 10 hole, it doesn't mean you're playing the number 10 role. Mesut Ozil, as we all know, he's been playing the number 10 role his whole career, so henceforth he's never really scored a lot of goals, though he can, because teams, they've used him in ways where he hasn't been required to. At Real, he was always giving 30, 40 yard through balls and over the top balls to Benzema and Di Maria when he was there, and that, so he didn't really have to score goals. But Del Piero, though he wore the number 10 or maybe played in that role for club and country, he was very much a striker. Just as to sort of give another example to it. And Yunus Mali, again, he plays the number 10 role and like tactically maybe on paper, but he has 1 assist all season. He has 8 goals. So is he really a number 10? It just depends on how you operate, what the tactical shape you want to use. So the shirt doesn't mean anything, neither does what your team sheet says from a tactical standpoint. It just depends on how you want to use that player.
Yeah, and Jansep, there is your weekly Yunus Mali mention, so you're welcome. Tom, let me give this one to you. This one is the second part of Thomas Shelley's question. Now, you have to try and not be biased here. He wants to know which European league is quote-unquote best at the moment. Yeah. I don't know you're going to say that. I'm going to put it to you a different way. Which European league do you think has the most quality in it?
Oh, well, that's a good question, because you can look at it as in best quality as a spread, in which I'd argue the Premiership has the best quality spread out throughout the league, especially in terms of the lower teams now having the ability to buy better quality players. But if you look at a league with the best and the higher number of best and world-class players in the league, then I would certainly lean you towards the La Liga, the likes of Real Madrid and Barcelona, and even Atletico Madrid with the players that they've got. I just feel there's a higher number of world class players. If I may, bring it round to Mr. Shelley's question in terms of the best league. I personally feel La Liga is the best league simply because it has the best players. It's consistent throughout Europe when it goes into European competitions. Obviously, Barcelona are the current Champions League holders, and Sevilla have won the Europa League for the last 2 times. So coming up against other European teams, Spanish teams do excellently well. And then you go into the Spanish national team as well, who have been excellent for the last few tournaments, bar the last one in Brazil. So there's my reasoning, and I am sure everyone disagrees.
It's another one that maybe we'll pick that up again next week if we have a quiet week, because it's another one that there's so many different parameters, but it's an excellent question, I have to say. Okay, I've got one sort of breaking news question that I'm going to save for John. And we did have one other question that I just want to get kind of a very short answer from you all. It comes from Connor_AFC. Now, it's kind of an Arsenal question, but I've twisted it slightly. He wanted to know if there were any world-class strikers out there that are not Champions League cup-tied. And he says, would you urge Wenger to break the bank for them? So that's kind of an Arsenal one. I'm going to twist it slightly and say, are there any players that we rate that potentially will get a move in January that are not Champions League cup sides? So, Drew, who have you picked out for us?
And this is from our relevant league, is what you said, correct?
Yes, yeah.
I would go with Kevin Volland. At Hoffenheim, he, 5 goals in 15 or 16 appearances for a club at the bottom says a lot. He's very talented. He's only 23. He can play any role across the front 3, including striker, both wings. He's got a vicious shot on him. I know, Kris, you can agree on that. And Hoffenheim are struggling so much, they're not going to be able to hold on to him forever, especially if they don't find themselves, they don't have a ton of money to spend to really improve their situation. So either start playing well or lose their best players. And I think he's the kind of German player, he's going to want to test himself, at another level eventually. He's going to want maybe on the Europa League spot, maybe even Champions League. He might even want to leave, the Bundesliga. So I think he's got the talent to go elsewhere to really play a vital role for a club in better standing.
Yeah, it's a good shout. John, who have you got for us?
Well, I thought I was really going to struggle with this, and then I remembered that neither club from Milan is actually in Europe this year, so it just went straight
Easy.
there. Mauro Icardi would be the first name that pops out. He hasn't had the most prolific season, it must be said, but there's no doubt in the quality that he's got, and just instinctful finish, and just you put that ball in the box and he will be the first one onto it. He hasn't had the greatest service at Inter. When he has started scoring goals, funny enough, was when Adam Ljajic came into the team. What a surprise. But he's definitely one, but there are a few, obviously Luis Adriano and Carlos Bacca as well, both at AC Milan, 2 very good strikers, very experienced as well. Played in Europe before, both of them. So there's a few in Italy that you could go and get. Just got to pay the money for them.
Yeah, too true. Tom, have you got one from La Liga for us?
Yeah, Luis Suarez. He's. I've gone for someone I've mentioned previously, and I've gone for Lucas Perez of Deportivo. Said it before: 14 goals and 18 appearances. 27 years old. He would be cheap if a team came into it. You'd be looking between 10 and 15 million for the blokes. Deportivo aren't a team that command massive fees for their players. And I think it'd be a great addition. He's very versatile. He started off as a more of an attacking midfielder than a striker, but he's taken on the role for Depor, and he's doing extremely well. There is a lot of options you can look at in that area in La Liga. You've got the like of Agarecha at Real Sociedad, and also Guerrero at Rayo Vallecano, who are hitting double figures in goals. So there's a lot of talent out there if you do look for it.
Yeah, there's plenty out there. As far as Liga goes, I've picked one that is definitely not world class, but I think will move because he's playing for a pretty terrible Toulouse side, and that is Wissam Ben Yedder. I don't think he will necessarily do a job for a Champions League side, so it probably defeats the object of the question, but it's the best I could figure. What he will do, I think, is probably score goals that might help keep a team in a league. So Premier League, be on high alert, I would say, on that one. Okay, final question or final piece of business for this week's pod. John, I just want to ask you something on breaking news that we've just been alerted to. And it's a bizarre story coming out of Monaco/AC Milan.
Is this the El Shawari story?
Yeah, so for our listeners that may not be aware of this, Corriere dello Sport have reported that Monaco have told Milan that they will not be exercising Stefan El Shawari's buyout clause, and that he's played for Monaco this season. He's played 24 games, and if he plays one more time, essentially Monaco will have to buy him for the 14 million euro buyout clause. So Milan have now got a choice. They either find him a new club or they keep him at Monaco, unable to play a single game. It's just a bizarre story. What do you think is going to happen here?
I know it sounds strange. I think it's probably happens more often than perhaps is alerted that these sort of things come out more now because we've got Twitter and that sort of thing. But it's probably happened quite a lot in the past. I know obviously you've watched a lot of Monaco and he obviously hasn't. He's done okay there, I think. I don't think he's been bad from the reports I've read. And he's a player I really like. I suspect that Milan will call him back. He will probably just be in training and won't play for them, and if they can get him a club in Serie A, they will. There's plenty of clubs who need a player like him in Serie A, lower down the table who will take him, and if worse comes to worse, then he will just be put back in the Milan squad. I don't think they'll have too much of a problem with it. The only disappointment for El Shawari will be the fact that if he is put back in the Milan squad, it's really going to hurt his chances of being picked for Italy in the Euros because he will be very far down the pecking order. But he's undoubtedly got quality, so there'll be a list of clubs waiting for him. I don't think he'll struggle to find someone else to play for.
No, I agree with that. You heard it here first. Watford or Bournemouth? Just going to put that out there.
Oh yes, and that we should say as well. Yes, thank you Bournemouth for making our pod last week incorrect.
Oh yes. The
although that one is still not confirmed either. Iturbe is now going to Bournemouth apparently.
Yes, absolutely. And Bournemouth have a lot of money, and I think El Shaarawy would fit very nicely in the absence of Max Gradel and Wilson up front. I think it would be a massive step down in a weird way, but it would get him game time, which, as you say, will be important for the Euros. So, interesting. We shall keep an eye on that. So there you go. There's a pod first on a week of pod first, but breaking news for you there. Right. Okay. That's pretty much draws a line under us this week. We said we'd do a short show. We haven't. We can never do a short show. It just doesn't work. But we've covered an awful lot of information, so hopefully you have all enjoyed. Just want to get a couple of quick plugs in. Drew, do you want to tell the listeners what you're currently working on at the moment for the website?
Oh, okay, yeah. So I put a poll out there the other day. Some of you may have noticed, but we're starting the weekly Hipster Hall of Fame. It's going to be coming out every Friday, and we're dubbing it Robin Friday, and paying homage to the player Robin Friday, who played in the league during the 1970s. So you can't get more hipsters than Robin Friday, obviously. So every week we're going to be doing a short little piece on some players that people have voted for. We at the pod have added to the list. I won't delve into any names, but I will say one of the names is who would people like to see us write about? Hidetoshi Nakata made the list, so that's one of the players. I know Kris and John will know who he was. So
Classic.
Yeah, every Friday. Yes. So every Friday, we'll be putting those out in regard. Also, we'll be doing other blogs. Some guest blogs are coming through as well. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me personally, I'm conducting an interview tomorrow with Rich Allen, who is part of the French Football Weekly crew. So hopefully, touch wood, we should be able to have that released hopefully later this week, if not the start of next. So keep an eye out for that. Rich is very, very knowledgeable in his French football. And I've also managed to sort out another interview with Natalie Dean, who some people might be familiar with from this year's UK Apprentice. She's a big Sheffield Wednesday supporter and has followed sort of lower league football since a very young child. So she'll be very interesting to talk to, both about sort of business and how football sort of crosses over into business, as well as her love for lower league football or indeed championship football. So that will be coming out soon as well, once we can nail down a date. And the only other thing to mention really is next week we're planning to do our teams of the season so far. So I've asked all of our panelists to come up with their teams of the season, kind of put into, or squad of the season, I should say. I'm allowing them subs as well. So we're going to. There's not any leagues back in action next week. The Premier League is back, and I think La Liga is back. So Tom's already on that. He'll be
Wednesday.
Yes, indeed. So Tom, you'll have some bits to report on, but. Myself, Drew, and John won't have a lot to discuss, so it'll be probably Premier League heavy again next week. But we thought we'd put teams of the season in to replace some dead air. So look forward to that. But as always, tweet us your thoughts. If you want a Hipster Handshake next week, you know what to do. Hashtag Hipster Handshakes when you tweet us. Any questions, get them in early, get them in late, whichever you prefer, and use the hashtag for the relevant league, and we'll try and get those answered. But that's it for this week. So we wish you all a very happy new year, because we will return in 2016. And for now, we say thank you all very much for listening. Keep your glasses trendy and indeed your beard strong, whichever way you prefer. And we will speak to you next week. So thank you very much to John, thank you very much to Drew, and thank you very much to Tom.
Thank you.
Chris.
And we've been the Football Hipsters. We'll speak to you soon. Thanks for downloading and choosing the Football Hipsters podcast. Remember, you can follow us at the FH Podcast on Twitter, or our website www.footballhipsterspodcast.co.uk. You can also follow us on Twitter individually at AFCFreddy8 for me, Kris, or for Danny it's at @the_GFP, for John it's at JWelsh84, for Tom it's at TCanton94, for Drew it's at AFCBVB1410, for Jake it's at JakeArsenal1, for our producer Gaz it's at GazmanJones, and for our researcher Kelly it's at Kelly_Mayor. We'll speak to you next week.